Hey everybody, Joe here, and I got a couple of emails this past week after I had shared my visit to motif number one in Rockport, Massachusetts, and the combination of taking a black and white and a color image and overlaying them to create a kind of a different effect. So I was going to bring up another image and just show you how that is done. Now this is an image still in Lightroom. This is actually Chenonceau Palace in the Loire Valley in France. And it was a stitch. And you can see down in the lower left here, there is a little piece that was missing. So we're going to fix that in Photoshop as well. So is there more that I could do to this image? Absolutely. But that's not what this is about. Let's send this into Photoshop, which is simply Photo, Edit in Photoshop, or Command or Control E. So here's our image in Photoshop. Now the first thing I'm going to do is go to this bottom here. Here's 100%. And I'm going to use the lasso tool to select this little piece that's missing. Now I could just use Content Aware Fill. Let's try that, which is the keyboard shortcut is Function Shift F5. Content Aware. Let's hit OK. And let's take a look. Actually, I think that might have done just a fine job. Actually, there's a little bit of missingness or a little bit of weirdness. Now we're looking at it 300%. That's not completely fair. But even at 100%, it looks a little weird. So let's undo that. And instead, what we're going to use is the generative fill in Photoshop. You don't put anything here. Just click on Generate. And it will give us three variations to choose from in filling this in. So let's see what it comes up with on generative fill. Okay, so there's one, don't like that. Here's number two. In fact, I'm going to zoom in. Let's zoom in a little more. That's not good either. And number three, that's better. Okay, again, we're looking at it at 200%. We look at it at 100%, and I kind of like the continuity of whatever these things are. So that's fine. We're going to go with that. Command 0 so we can see the whole screen. And I'm going to flatten these two together, so I can hold them both and hit Command or Control E again, which flattens the layers. I don't need to see the special generative fill bar anymore, so let's get rid of that. Because what we're after is combining a color and a black and white image to add a little bit more pop and interest to it. So to do that, a couple different ways. Let's first use the built-in black and white conversion. So I'm going to create a black and white adjustment layer, which gives us a default color, which is kind of boring actually. I think the sky's a little bit too bright. And what you can do is use this pointy finger here, come over to, I'm going to make the sky darker. Click on that, drag left makes it darker, drag right makes it lighter. I think the sky needs to be a lot darker. I like that. Now the trees, let's lighten them up a little bit. I'll push that up. And the building itself, do we want to go a little darker on that? Actually, I think, yeah, I think something like that. So here's our black and white over top of the color without anything done to it. But what we're going to do is change some of the blending modes. Now we're on normal. First stop will be overlay. Let's scroll down till we get to overlay, which is right here. And yes, it looks terrible. Relax. We're going to cut down the opacity of this, generally somewhere between 25 and 30%. Let's go, well, let's see what 24 looks like. And we can turn that on and off, and you can see how it adds some oomph to the image. I actually, you know what? I'm actually fairly happy with that. So I could be done and leave it there. Let's do something different. In fact, I'm going to make a copy of the background layer so I have one just in case I mess up. And what I'm going to do is go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, and we're going to use Threshold. And what Threshold means it's going to be either black and white. And you can drag this thing left and right and see what that means. Where is it going to be affected? Basically, it's a monotone. It's either black or white. Let's try something like that. That's kind of cool. And let's make that. Now, if we do overlay here, let's take a look. It's going to be very extreme. Let's bring the opacity down and still kind of graphical. We're down pretty low here. So here's 16%. And if I turn it on and off, you can see, yeah, it actually does add a nice bit of contrast to the sky. However, I'm not sure that I love what it's doing to the actual building. I like what it's doing around the building, but not to the building itself. So how can we fix that? Well, watch this. Let's just go back to a layer that has our full photograph on it, this one right here, and go to select subject rather. We'll do subject, and it pretty much takes the whole building. It didn't pick up this part over here. That's okay. That one was fine the way it was because it's darker. Now let's come up to the threshold layer, click on the mask. Now the mask has got the building selected. So I'm going to click to put black in the foreground, and then Option Delete or Alt Delete to put that in the mask. Now, if I hold down Alt and click on the mask, you can see that's what it's just done. So now what it's doing is basically blocking that threshold from actually hitting the building. And you can see now it's doing everything but the building. Actually, that's not terrible. But here's the cool thing. I'm not sure. I don't like what it's doing here. It's missing a piece. You can continue to adjust this while it's here, and you can see the threshold come in and out. And you might decide, well, I need to kind of gently fix that. So I'm going to get a brush. It's a little rough over here. So I'm going to get a big brush and something like that. And I'm going to paint it about 60% with black on the mask here, and watch what happens. See how it fades? Did you see that? Here, I'm going to do right over here. Watch the sky, and you can see how it blends it in. And what we're doing is, if I hold down Alt again and click on the mask, you can see that's what it's doing. I'm just kind of fading that transition in, and now if I turn it on and off, that actually looks pretty darn good. So by doing that, just adding that bit of black and white, look at the pop it did. But let's do a little bit more. And we're going to do a little special effect here because some people specifically asked for this. I'm going to hide that one. Let's go back to our layer with the image, and we're going to go to Nik's Silver Efex Pro. So Filter, Nik Collection, Silver Efex Pro. Now this does not come with Photoshop. You got to pay for this. If you're a landscape photographer, you want this. You pay once, I think it's $149. You get all of these filters, and they're all pretty cool. So let's go to Silver Efex. And we've got this before and after slider. Let me push that off to the side. And over on the left-hand side, you have all of these kind of thumbnail starting points. I'm thinking high structure smooth. Let's take a look at that one. Yes, that's a lot better. I still want the sky darker though. So we can come over here to where it says control points, click on that, click up in the sky, and then if I bring my cursor over to this little lever here, make it bigger, and now I can bring the brightness down of just the sky. And that's pretty cool. Hold down the Alt key, and I can then take it and drag it over to this other piece of sky. And I'm going to click on control points again and come right here into the water. I want this part of the water to be a little bit brighter. So let's increase the brightness in there. I'll also add structure, which is kind of a contrast, and a little bit of contrast. So we can see our before and after from the generic black and white conversion up to that. Now that as itself is still a pretty cool image, right? But wait, there's more. We're going to go ahead and get fancy here and scroll all the way down. First till we come to toning. Let's try toning. Now, for that kind of old sepia look, my favorite one is called Coffee. There's a shock, right? Coffee, which is kind of that effect. Do I like that? I think there's another one. There's another one called Selenium, which is kind of a bluish, slightly bluish black and white. If I can just find it here. Kind of a steel gray. Oh, yeah, there we go. I like that. Also, there are some cool image borders down here, and they are named with ridiculously stupid names. Just type 1 through whatever. What does it go down to? 14. Not very good description, but as you scroll down, you can see what each of these layers does. I think I want something fairly subtle. Something like that is good. You can also change the size, which will say how far in or out it's going to come. I'm going to put it a little closer to the edge, something like that. And you can also have it spread, which is how big is the border going to be. I'm going to cut it down a little. And then there's a roughness slider. We'll make it a little rougher. And there we go. I think that looks pretty cool. So let's click apply on there, and that's going to put that over top of our image, and we're going to see it in its full black and white. But just like the other black and white treatments, we can go ahead and change the blending modes. So let's see if we take this and make it as an overlay. Let's see what happens. Let's make that as an overlay. Yeah, I'm not really loving it, actually. I think we're going to go with a different one. Let's go to luminosity down the bottom here. And that I'm liking. Let's come down with our opacity a bit. That's kind of an interesting effect. And if we hide it, you can see the before and after. Now, if you decide you don't like these borders, you don't have to add them. Just skip that part. But that adds an interesting bit of tonality to the image when you consider we started with that, and there we go. And if you really want to play, the ones that we did before, the threshold and the black and white, we could add those too and see what happens. Let's see. There's the threshold. I think that's a little too strong. Maybe we could take that and bring the power. It's already at 16%. I think thresholds are the wrong answer for this. But we can take the other black and white and put that on there and change it to, say, soft light. And that adds a little bit, even a little bit more pop to it. Here's the however, though. I might like what it's doing to the rest of the image, but I think it's making the structure itself too dark. So watch this. Let's again come down to our image layer, go to select, and we're going to select the subject and see if the software can find the building, which it does. Click on the mask for our black and white, and we're going to hit Alt-Delete because now we have that mask on the building. And if you click Alt on the mask, there's the building masking out the black and white effect. Deselect that, and you can see it's affecting the rest of the background without touching the building. So that's adding even a little more pop. We went from there, don't get rid of the threshold, to there. So there's our choices. There was our original brought in after our fill. And then here's the Silver Efex Pro. Here's the threshold by itself. And here's the black and white by itself with the building itself masked out. So just some things you can do with black and white layers on top of your color images to add a little bit more interest to them. In fact, let's take a look at this one in full screen. And makes for sort of a very interesting sort of postcardy looking image. So that's it for today. I hope that was helpful. Yes, I went through a lot of it fast. You can stop and rewind though. That's it. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you online again soon. Have a great week. Bye-bye.